I'd like to call the regular meeting of the City Council March 7th to order, please. This time, we'd like to have the Pledge of Allegiance. I'm going to ask Councilman Butch McSwain if you'll please rise and have the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please be seated. This time, I'd like to call on the Reverend Jasper Hemphill from Ecclesia Bible Institute. And Reverend Hemphill, we would like to remember the folks in Ukraine. It really hits home, and one of our interpreters for the deaf community has family out there in Kiev right now. So if you'll please remember those watching at home, please remember the folks in Ukraine at this time. Reverend Hemphill.
Let us pray. Father God, we thank you for allowing us to wake up this morning and start us on our way, telling us we still got work to do for you, and it is for you. We ask you to continue to watch over these leaders as we've entered into the council gates to do the work of your community and your city. And so we say thank you. Now, Father God, continue to bless these folks as they continue to make answers and lean not to their own understanding, but all they get their understanding from you. And so we say thank you. Now continue to bless these your folks that are here tonight as they go through, agreeing to agree, agreeing to disagree, but in Jesus' name. And so we say thank you. Now, Lord God, continue to bless the people both here, both abroad, that protect and serve us, to do your will and to obey. Bless those in Bosnia. Bless those all over the world, Lord, as they continue to fight the good fight of faith, knowing that you are great and a great God, and above all, there is none other. And so we say thank you. Continue to touch our hearts. Continue to let us hear you through your people, through your servants, as they make their decisions according to your will and to obey you one to another. And so, Father God, we just thank you for just being able to be here in this space as life goes on, and we do it more abundantly through you. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you, Jasper. This time, I'd like to introduce council. To my far right, Wendy Cato, Mayor Pro Tem. Our City Attorney, Louis V. Nye. I'm Ronnie Thompson, your mayor. Sally Sandy, our City Manager. Butch McSwain, City Council. Chris Hawkins, City Council. And Chris Jernigan is out of town and will be attending the meeting remotely by telephone. All votes will be taken by roll call, with the mayor asking if the councilman has heard all the details of the item in question and asking him to clearly and audibly voice his vote. Chris, are you there?
Yes, sir, I'm here.
Thank you, Chris. Okay, we also have a few more people that need introduction. Our recording secretary, which is Kelly Russell. And for those who don't know, this is her last meeting, and we are going to miss her. We just thank her for, she's taking her nameplate down already. Not yet. You've got to get through the meeting. Renee Carswell is going to be taking her place, and we welcome Renee into the fold. But Kelly, thank you for all the years of service you've given to City Council and the City of Morganton. Our interpreters, Danette Stillman-Bridges and Ernest Williams, are available the 4th for our deaf community. Retirement resolutions. We have two retirement resolutions that we need to take care of. The first is George Tim Clay, who retired from Morganton on March 1st, and I'd like to read that resolution. Whereas George Tim Clay joined the City of Morganton as Master Reader Supervisor in the Electric Department on May 3rd, 2004, was promoted to Street Supervisor in the Public Works Department, and was promoted to Street Superintendent of Public Works on February 5th, 2008. And whereas George Tim Clay has faithfully served and given of his time and efforts for the benefits of the citizens of the City of Morganton for 19 years, and whereas George Tim Clay retired from the City of Morganton as Streets Superintendent of Public Works Department on March 1st, 2022, and whereas the Morganton City Council wishes to officially recognize the contributions of George Tim Clay and express their appreciation for a job well done, Now therefore be it resolved by the City of Morganton that the mayor present this resolution to George Tim Clay, adopted this 7th day of March, 2022. Ronnie Thompson, Mayor, Sally Sandy, Manager. To have a motion to accept this resolution.
So moved.
To have a second.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
I'll ask Councilman Chris. Aye, okay, thank you so much. Next, we have a second, and and George Tim Clay's plaque will be presented to him at a later time. Next, we have another city employee who has retired, and that would be Tony Loudermilk. I'd like to read that resolution. Whereas Tony W. Loudermilk joined the City of Morganton as a public safety officer in the Public Safety Department on December 3rd, 1994, and continued to build his career through transfers and various ranks, culminating in his promotion to Director of Public Safety on April the 1st, 2020. And whereas Tony Loudermilk has consistently strived to grow as a public safety officer, attaining additional educational opportunities and certifications, while proving himself to be a leader in every rank throughout his career, sharing his knowledge and expertise, always with the intent of improving the department while serving the citizens. And whereas Tony Loudermilk always exemplified his devotion in doing what is right, commitment to building community relations, and whereas Tony Loudermilk has faithfully served the City of Morganton and the Public Safety Department with integrity and has given of his time and efforts for the benefit of the citizens of the City of Morganton for over 27 years, and whereas Tony Loudermilk retired from the City of Morganton as Chief and Director of Public Safety Department on March 1st, 2022, and whereas the Morganton City Council wishes to officially recognize the contributions of Tony Loudermilk and express their appreciation for a job well done, now therefore be it resolved by the City of Morganton that the mayor present this resolution to Tony Loudermilk, adopted this 7th day of March, 2022. Ronnie Thompson, Mayor, Sally Sandy, City Manager. Do I have a motion to accept this resolution?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
Thank you. I'll ask Mayor Pro Tem Wendy Cato. She'll present that resolution, and if Tony Loudermilk will come forward, please. And before Tony gets to say something, I again want to share my appreciation for the incident that happened on the courthouse back in June of 2020. Tony, I think you and your department handled things extremely well. Nobody went to the hospital, and I think they were well trained, and thanks to your leadership, everybody went home safe. Thank you so much.
I don't like you and your civvies, so, but it is my pleasure and my honor to give you this plaque. You have served us well from the time you came on board and all the way to being our chief, and you will be greatly missed.
Thank you.
Tony?
Thank you for those kind words, Councilwoman. I want to thank the entire City Council individually, the mayor and the city manager, for having trust in our Public Safety Department and supporting us throughout the years, and not just public safety, but all departments within the city. And I'm not just talking about salaries, I'm talking about equipment, training, budgetary items. That goes a long ways, and public safety itself has progressed and moved forward tremendously the last few years. And it's a lot of the reason, not just because of our employees, that's probably the main reason, but also with the council and the mayor and the city manager's support along the way. And I think everybody sees that, and public safety is a much better place because of it. They say if you love what you do, then you never have to go to work, and that definitely is what is me. Because over the last 27 years, I loved every day I came in. Now there was ups and downs, don't get me wrong, but it was an opportunity given to me, and I really appreciate all the opportunities I've been given over the years. And what made me probably the most happy about my job the easiest is the men and women at Public Safety who are currently there, who have came before me, who's going to come after me. That is probably the most professional, dedicated, and committed employees that the city can have. And y'all are in good hands with those folks, and those are the ones I'm going to miss the most. But I'm not going far. I'll be around, and if I can help anyone, just reach out to me, and I'll be there. Thanks again. Thank you.
to do the weapons.
Yes, we have another action.
Let me get it.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to declare a weapon Glock Model 45 serial number BSTF714 and Carnes Model number 1044 DSW Fire Services helmet as surplus, sold for $1 and presented to retired Chief Tony Loudonville.
I have a motion to have a second.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Chris? Chris? Okay, I figure you vote for it since you made the motion. I'll ask Sally if she will present
And I
the,
will pay the dollar on behalf of Tony,
he's worth it.
begrudgingly.
Yes,
How
yeah,
about that?
exactly.
Chris, thanks so much. Okay, we're going to move into public advocacy, and as we heard just a few minutes ago and from recent TV and newspaper reports, there's been much public interest and concern about homeless camps in Morganton. City Council believes that we should address these concerns as part of our public advocacy sessions. So I'll ask Sandy, our city manager, to present this presentation. Sally?
Yes, thank you. And thank everyone for their comments, and thank everyone for their interest in our community, because it's all of our community. Recently, the television coverage and news coverage has brought light to a particular homeless camp and situation in the city. But the reality is that there's a lot, and there are several more, and that it is a larger issue than just a camp. It's also true that it is a larger issue than Morganton, and that this is something that communities across our country are dealing with and struggling with, because in the end, it's an issue that's about zoning, rules, regulations, people, and when you throw all that together, it makes it a very difficult situation to deal with. Thought it would be appropriate for us to share some images, share some situations that have occurred over the past several years that are occurring currently, and to give everyone a taste of what the city staff and our employees are dealing with each and every day regarding this situation. We have several folks that are going to talk about their involvement with this, and I'll call on those as we go through it. So what we're sharing with you are some pictures that have been taken over the last several years, as I said, at different areas in the community. So this is off Henry Don Road, and I really want to say that this is not meant, we talked in the public comments, several folks talked about judgment. This is not a judgment. Hopefully this is presented as the facts and true life situations that are going on, and that is the intent to this. Morganton has a reputation as a community that offers resources to those who have, I believe the word we had, which is very accurate, is unfortunate circumstances and unfortunate times. We are known regionally for that. And because of that, and because of the good job that we do, and we haven't solved the issues, we have other communities that consistently bring people from their community and drop them off here. And you can see the cars, you can see the communities. Forest City hands out a letter telling people that they need to get here. Asheville and Buncombe County bring people here. The Catawba County Sheriff's Department brings people and drops them off because they've been seen doing it. And so our problem is exacerbated by that. And I just wanted to say those things. I wanted to say that as we go through this, and I believe Mr. Norman commented on it, one of the responsibilities of cities in North Carolina is to regulate zoning, to regulate nuisances, and to deal with that. And again, I'd like to say that when you match that up with the human element, it's easy to sit outside some days and make a judgment. Let's use that word. a judgment and a thought about how it's being handled or how it's not being handled, it's very different when you sit in the seat and you're trying to handle it. But I do think that our citizens deserve to see what the city employees and staff are dealing with. Most of what I'm going to show you, some of it is on private property, some of it is on public property. There have been other instances that have occurred where private property owners have had to clean up their property and to deal with this. So Chad, you can go to the next one. You'll see that we've got Cascade Falls, and this was in July of 2020. You can go to the next slide, Chad. And we saw Henry Don Road property earlier. This is on Sanford Drive. And this is a snapshot, but in the last 3 years, our code enforcement officer, Mike Kirby, who is getting ready to come up and share a few comments about our nuisance process. These are addresses where we have dealt with homeless camps. And I'm using that term because it's a widely used term. I am not indicating that all of these people may in fact be homeless. I'm just using that term because I don't have a better one. So, Mike, would you like to come up and share some comments?
Thank you. I was asked to speak on how our nuisance process works. I work either proactively or reactively. Proactively means that I'm out in the community driving around looking for active violations. I'm able to do that sometimes, but most of the time it's reactively, which means I'm getting complaints from citizens either by phone, either coming in or by email. Once I get a complaint on a specific address, then I'll go out and do an investigation to see if it does meet a violation. Sometimes come back and look through our codes, either if it's a zoning violation or a nuisance violation. At that time, if I consider it a violation of the code, I'll send out a letter to the property owner. Sometimes I'll send 2 letters out if it's like a tenant landlord. I'll send one to the tenant and one to the landlord. I usually give, ordinance states about 15 days, but it's up to my discretion, either less or more. It just depends. Sometimes it's less if it's what we consider a chronic violator, which, we just recently redid that last year to include chronic violators or 3 or more in a calendar year for the same property. After that time, if whatever due date that I give them to clean up the property or correct the violation, then I'll go back out and do a follow-up investigation. And then at that time, what I do is, if it's not been corrected, I'll send out a civil penalty, a citation or a fine. We just recently redid that when I came here 2 years ago. The first violation is $50, a second violation is $100, a third violation is $300, and then after that it's $50 per day until the violation's cleaned up. Now sometimes, as in the case with the camp on Heron Street, we sometimes consider these to be public health nuisances. And the reason we considered it a public health nuisance was 2 reasons. It was trash, and then it was human waste, specifically feces and urine. Just back in December, council approved a new ordinance that I wrote as a violation of depositing human waste anywhere but a sanitary facility. And this was one of the reasons that I had to come up with that ordinance, because I was getting too many phone calls from citizens and other places that were complaining about it, and I felt like it was a need that the city had to push forward. But after, like I said, after that, if we consider it a public health nuisance and the city has to step in, then what we do is we do an abatement process. And that's when the city has to spend money on a contractor to come in and clean up the violations. At that time, what we do is after the violation, after the abatement's been taken care of, then what we'll do is we send a notice to the homeowner with what we paid to have it cleaned up, and I give them 30 days to pay it. If after 30 days they do not pay it, then I go to the courthouse and I file a tax lien on the property. Like I said before, some of the new ordinances that I've had to put in is specifically for homeless encampments. I mean, it's like Sally showed up on the board with the pictures and the cases that I've had to do. It does take up a significant amount of my time. And, you know, I'm the only code enforcement in the city, and I think, what do we have now? Last census, 18,000 population. That's a lot to keep up with, and that doesn't count the traffic coming in and out. And as Sally touched on, as a previous law enforcement officer, I can attest that it's a migratory problem, and it goes from the coast to the mountains, and they migrate from coast to mountain to wherever they know there's going to be something for them. But if you have any questions, I'd feel free to.
Mike, I've got two questions. First, you talked about public health.
Yes,
And I
sir.
know we have a county public health department.
Yes, sir.
Can they get involved in conjunction with you, and
I
do
mean,
you ever call them in?
I don't, because at that time it's more of a hazardous material situation. So really have to get somebody professional in with, you know, to be able to clean that up, because sometimes there's needles. Like I said, there's human waste. I don't know. I know there's a picture somewhere, but, you know, there's a 5-gallon bucket full, and I think there was
It's
about.
coming up.
Yeah. And I mean, that's hazardous material.
Right.
I mean, you've gotta have some people trained to clean that up, and we've done that several times in the past 2 years I've been here.
Second question is, some camps are on the railroad right of way, and I know we can't, I understand can't move them unless the railroad asks us to move them. Is that correct?
Well, I just spoke with, I know the chief of the railroad police, and I just spoke with him last week. A lot of their railroad right-of-ways are just service right-of-ways, so we have to speak with the property owners. I know there's one at the Duke Power substation on Rand Street right now, and, you know, I've spoken with Duke Power, and they have graciously advised me that they were going to handle the situation. So, but railroad police will step in if they have to remove them.
Other questions from council? Chris, Chris Jernigan, any questions?
No, I don't have any, thank you.
Okay, thanks. I think
Thank
next.
you, Mike.
Yeah, Sally.
So we have a few more slides, and next, Captain Wisnett is going to talk to us, someone who's had an awful lot of experience over the years in dealing with this and working with the challenges and the issues. Again, some more photographs. So 1 year ago, in March of 2021, this is what Heron Street looked like. And you can go to the next slide, Chad. This is behind Morganton Heights in February of 2021. This is across from the soccer complex, February 2021. Sanford Drive, same area. Play video, please, Chad. So this is at the soccer complex. By the riverbank,
Silver Creek.
Silver Creek.
That's a damn shame. Y'all put him in jail.
This is the cleanup of that, and we paid $6,000 to a contractor to clean that up, and you see some of the results of that cleanup happening there. There are lots and lots of public resources that are going into this, whether it is people, whether it is dollars. This was just Friday morning outside of the community house. this is what we saw. And I guess my point is that it's not a single area, it's not one area, it's a lot of areas. And as you look at that, large sums of public dollars are being spent to clean this up. There's all kinds of issues, and I'm going to share in a little bit the kinds of things that our employees who are cleaning parks, who are taking care of public restrooms and things like that, what we're finding. But now I'll turn over to Jason.
Council, so we're all on the same page here. I'm a lifelong resident of Burke County. Lived here all my life, been employed with public safety for 20-something years. But I can tell you, though, that in my earlier years as public safety, there was a handful of homeless folks that you could count on one hand, and we all know who those folks were. You had Catman and Theodore Lambert, and you had Cowboy and a few more of those guys, but typically you could just count them on one hand. And what I've noticed here recently, particularly in the last 10 to 15 years, is that number has just exponentially grown, just for a variety of factors. As Mr. Kirby had pointed out, it could be a transient nature, it could be the level of services that are offered in our community. But be that as it may, at our last count during this past summer, it was about 70 folks that were living unsheltered, spread out over the camps that we know of, at least 22 camps. And so that number is probably underestimated, but that is the number that we got. And so leading up to that, particularly over the past 2 years, we've been receiving an increasing number of calls dealing with complaints about homeless and homeless-related issues, particularly trespassing, panhandling, littering, creating litter and blight on private properties and in neighborhoods and also in community parks. To remedy this, I had worked with numerous property owners to trespass those properties and to fix a letter in place. The property owners had expressed concern about being cited from our ordinances for allowing campsites to be there. Also, they were concerned about, folks with larger tracts of property being concerned about liability issues that their homeowner's insurance may have, allowing homeless persons on that property. And so, working with those property owners to clean up those properties, we cleaned up 16 different properties, a lot of those being private properties that the property owner had to secure the cleaning bill for that. And again, it was in the thousands upon thousands of dollars of private money to clean that up. And as persons have been trespassed over the last couple of years, they had migrated to the Heron Street site. Systematically, as campsites were remedied and abated, this is where they went. And so the issue that we had with Heron Street is that the property owner had been deceased for about 3 years. And I spent days and days along with our city attorney trying to locate who this person was and to find the next of kin or an heir to that property to express the concern that the neighbors were having. And over the past 3 years, hundreds of complaints have come in from this camp on Heron Street, ranging from rodents to insects to noise to strange, unusual odors, domestics, just numerous calls over the past 3 years. Knowing that this particular camp here was an issue, when the city had decided to abate this camp, Mike Kirby and I had was going to go down and talk to these folks, and realizing that it was going to be abated, on January the 25th, I called some of my contacts with the shelter at McDowell Mission and asked if it looks like we're going to have several people to needing shelter, would you be able to accommodate a quantity of folks up to 16? And they assured me that they would be able to, and so working with Greenway Transport and also with our Recreation Department to get a van, offered to transport these folks down to McDowell Mission. And so while we were there, I met personally with 3 of those folks and explained the how and the why, and why this property was going to be posted, and also, the what's next. And so, offering that out, explaining to those folks what we were gonna do, and also with the realization that there were no more really usable campsites. The old standby campsites had been posted no trespassing, so that, you know, there was nowhere to camp really that was not posted, and that they would likely be criminally charged if they went on that property again after having been warned. And so, I also offered up an opportunity, if anybody had any questions or concerns, to spread the word that the camp will be posted as of February 14th, that you'll no longer be allowed to be on this property, and for anybody to come by the police department, just a short walk up from Heron Street, and ask me any questions that they may have. So a follow-up with that, Lieutenant Corvu asked him to go to the camp on February the 11th to speak with anybody to see if they had any further questions. Also to get a head count if anybody wanted to go, and to establish a pickup time at 2 o'clock to go to McDowell Mission. And, you know, 2 o'clock being a selected time, we wanted to make sure that folks were able to get lunch and to pack up their personal belongings and get down there in time to get settled in and have dinner at the shelter. And so that word was passed on, and Lieutenant Corvu went to the camp at 2 o'clock on February the 14th, and no one wanted to go. There was no one there at that time.
Any questions?
Hey, Chad, will you bring up the next slide, please?
Jason, thanks.
So this is, since this is the one that's been mostly in the news, so you see again a year ago. And then, Chad, will you play the video, which was February of 2022?
How are you? How many people are here?
And then here's another example over on Sanford Drive, and this was back August of 2021.
Carlo Butch, would you like to make some comments?
I sure would. First, I want everybody to understand that nobody here, and I doubt very few in the audience, and certainly not our staff, ever thinks anyone should have to live in conditions like we just saw. This is a great country we have, and we should be able to avoid that. I don't know that in the level of our community, the council has much that we can do. But I do know that we are charged to protect all our residents and property owners and the homeless. They are members of our community. We recognize that the impact of these camps have a tremendous effect on people living close by. Fear, anxiety, health concerns have no place in your own home. It should not be something you need to worry about coming at you from your neighbors. The Heron Street camp did have to be cleaned up. You saw it. In the past, well, since July 1st, we have spent over $16,000 cleaning up camps. That comes right out of taxpayers' pockets. And we have to alleviate, and we have to figure out how to work that into the budget that was passed a year ago now. and are now working on the next one. So this is a part of living here too. In addition to what we saw as camps, you saw one picture. We have a lot of loner camp homeless that are sleeping under tarps, pitching tents. Sometimes the owners know they're there, sometimes they don't. But they are also a factor that we have to deal with in staff. I think everybody knows my background with the Recreation Department. I really feel bad. Think of our maintenance guys who are going out to the parks, scared to death they're going to stab themselves with a needle. Now, that's an issue far beyond the homeless. There are a lot of users who are using our park and misusing our community that are not homeless, but it does factor into our concerns. I also need to express that anything we do has to be in line with state laws and our city ordinances. We are bound by what we can do with those, even though sometimes we'd like to do a lot more and move faster, but we can't. Sometimes it takes a long time to follow through with these procedures. Let me change it. It seems like it takes a long time for us to follow through those procedures. It does not mean that we're not following those procedures to get things done. And I'd like to add also, Susie Fitzgerald mentioned up here, there are some excellent organizations in this community working with the homeless, the working poor who may have a place to live, but help is there for anyone who wants to find it. And as she said, they've transitioned people from homeless to self-reliance over the last few years. Also, there is a lot of money, I think everyone has read and seen, there's a lot of money comes from the federal government and the state government to deal with social issues. When it comes to the county, they have the Department of Social Services. They have the health department. They need to be approached in dealing with some of the issues that lead to our homeless population. And I think the interest, the showing the number of people that are here tonight shows what a serious problem we have, and it is something we will be working on. And thank you all for your interest.
Other comments from City Council? Chris? Wendy?
Well, having come from the nonprofit world for several years, I was like Jason, we pretty much knew who our characters were in town, but having state institutions that when people are discharged, they get an opportunity to choose where they want to stay. We have the biggest heart in the state, I think our community does, and our organizations, our nonprofit organizations are there to serve the people that are needed, so they want to stay here because their communities may not embrace them as much as our nonprofits. It's a catch-22. You know, we are supposed to serve those who need our help, but at the same time, they also need to understand that they have a responsibility to the community that they are staying in. So to the Bateman's heart, your heart is there. I encourage you to work with the organizations that are currently working with it: Burke United Christian Ministries, Good Samaritan Clinic, CCRP, the Mission Station, House of Refuge, Good Sam. There are counselors, the people who you might not have the skill sets for that can help you with this. This is something that we are constrained, as Butch says, by legislation. And what we need to do is to protect all citizens. And the services are here for those who want to help themselves. And then there are rules and regulations that are required if you choose to live here. And so, we are here to protect those people who are investing in this community, and we're here to protect the people who cannot invest. So it's a quandary, but I encourage those of you who are here to find out what the organizations are that are serving this population, find out what they do, either get involved as a board member or something that they do, or if you want to support something, find the organization that is trying to solve this problem and support them. So That's what I would like to say about the homeless.
Thank you, Wendy. Councilman Jernigan, any comments?
Well, Mr. Mayor, I'll just echo what's been said. It's a complicated issue, and it's a frustrating issue for a lot of folks. I'm out of the state right now, and I have been doing some traveling recently, and every city I've been in seems to be facing the same issue. There are no easy answers. I think we are fortunate in Morganton that we have lots of service providers that can help. Again, it takes both sides of that. You gotta want to accept the help, and you've got to do the best you can when you get that help. Jason mentioned that he had helped secure some shelters, and folks decided they didn't want to go there. So sometimes that help's offered, and you gotta take it. By the same token, we do understand our responsibility on the council. There are rules and regulations, there are ordinances, and we have to enforce those ordinances. So we'll be working as hard as we can to solve the current issue, and we'll try to find answers to homelessness like everybody else is trying to find answers to this problem.
Thank you, Chris. Sally?
Yes, so Chad, will you bring up the recap, if you will? So a lot's been said, a lot's been talked about. I think it's safe to say we have resources in the community. None of us up here believe that at any given moment that there is the perfect resource to answer every situation. And we know that. Earlier tonight, we heard somebody talk about more low-income housing. Absolutely, and that is something that this council has been working very hard to do, and investing quite a few dollars in some utilities to be able to do more of that in our community. I just kind of wanted to bring all this together and in conclusion, talk about some of the things, and we've hit on all of them. Trash, you've seen what it looks like. Smells and odors, environmental concerns, sanitation concerns, and you're gonna see an example of that. Councilman McSwain talked about our public bathrooms, our beautification areas. And again, I think we realize this doesn't have to always be a homeless person, but we find needles all the time. There is not a week that goes by that the recreation department folks don't repair a bathroom somewhere, and that's either a toilet, a sink, and find needles in sinks, that the toilet paper containers are torn off, the hand soap things are torn off, gates to parks. We had a stabbing at Shuey Park that we had to clean up with some folks who were camping there. I have dealt with that. Had a situation where one of our public bathrooms, the handle was taken off the door and an out of order sign was put on the door for the folks who were living in the bathroom. And the costs we've talked about in cleaning all this up, and again, I want everybody full disclosure to know, because we're transparent with our expenditures. Councilman talked about, since July, about $16,000. That does not include the other repairs, the things I'm talking about now. No, those numbers aren't in those numbers. $5,000 worth of damage done to the bathrooms at the skate park down by Gene Turner Field because someone thought that a friend was stuck in there and they started tearing the building apart. We fixed it. There's been any number of other instances like that have happened where lots of dollars have been spent. Complaints from individuals, money spent on private property, you heard how many of those have been dealt with. Damage to power outlets, that's another thing. You know, we put in a lot of those in downtown and we've had them, and quite frankly, we had to try to take them away because they're being destroyed over and over and over again. It's very frustrating. We've already had damage in the new bathrooms associated with the courthouse square. It's not even finished yet. So we have a lot of difficult issues to deal with regarding this topic and surrounding this. Chad, you can go to the next slide, please. So this is the potty that was found, and this is the track that goes down to the creek where it was being dumped. That's an environmental problem. That's an issue. That's an issue that no one should have to deal with. Next slide, please. So most recently, the cleanup at Heron Street. The contractor charge was $5,600. This is the final load that was cleaned up. The city took this to the landfill in one load, and our ticket showed that it was 6 tons. It weighed 6 tons. There was 6 tons of trash. The contractor had taken 2 loads prior to that, which we estimate to be at least another 6 tons. It's 12 tons, one location. You saw it before a year ago, and you saw it now. Play video, please. This is our sanitation superintendent just driving by the last load that was waiting to be carried off. So my final comments are, it's very difficult. The responsibility from up here is to balance the regulatory responsibility, at least I believe, with the compassion, but at the same time, you have to recognize that the public's health, safety, and property of everybody here needs to be protected to the best that we can. And that really is the bottom line.
Again, I would like to thank all the people here. Everyone has a keen interest. We appreciate you being here and listening, seeing the facts as we have them from the city side. You are all welcome to stay for an exciting balance of our city council meeting. We're talking about public hearings and budgets. You're welcome to stay, but we really do appreciate your input and comments. Thank you so much.
Yeah, because
I invited them to stay, Butch.
You know, that's a good point. Somehow that would be poetic, right?
I should have.
no, they got it.
7:15.
10:15. So, was it good?
This was
An
very,
hour?
this was very,
We needed to do this.
Yeah. Oh,
it's
yeah.
very good.
I think it was pretty good. I'm a little biased, but I think it was pretty good.
Really good. I mean, these are the facts.
There's
We
not a
haven't
whole
blown
lot you can
anything up.
say after that last video and last photo.
Yep.
I mean, it's just unbelievable.
Okay. So I guess we can go on
I
and
would
tell them
like
that
to
Mark
have
had
gotten up on the soapbox to emphasize the counties.
Okay, upcoming events in Morganton. The world-famous ACC Chili Cook-Off Drive-Through is Thursday, March 10th from 11 to 1:30. We have some art in the hallway, work by Desiree Lee, an artist in resident with Toss, with sketches from Renee Mora's middle school figure drawing workshop. Really a fantastic art display in our hall. At Comma, our Performing Arts Center, we have Sidewalk Prophets, which will be Thursday, March the 10th at 7:30. Lynn Trezek, help me, Louie. Tresger, thank you very much. Saturday, March 12th at 7:30. Sons of Maestro, Saturday, March 19th at 7:30. Hairspray, which is Monday, March 21st at 7:30. Rhonda Vincent and the Rage, Saturday, March 26th at 7:30. And Tananel Weavers on Thursday, March 31st at 7:30. So a lot of exciting things happen at our Performing Arts Center.
And may I add one thing that's not on here? Just late last week, we found out about an opportunity for the city to perhaps speed up the Bethel Park improvements over and above what we've talked about. Found out that we have an opportunity to submit a Parks and Recreation Trust Fund grant May 2nd as not very long from now. And as a part of that, we have to hold a public meeting, and we would want to hold a public input meeting over and above what we've done with our master plan. So that is going to happen April 4th, the Monday before the city council meeting, in this room at 4:30 p.m. Of course, that will get advertised, and we will get that news out. But wanted to let people know now, and we're hoping that the News Herald will help us with that. And we'd like to work with you on an article to tell folks. Thank you.
Next on our agenda, North Carolina Municipal Power Agency 1. Sally?
Nothing at this time.
We have 6 items under our consent agenda. Sally, if you'll cover those.
We do, and all 6 of those items we consider to be routine in nature, and would ask that the council consider approving those in one motion, unless you want something discussed separately, and we'd be happy to do that. For those of you viewing at home, that includes 2 sets of minutes from the regular meeting on February 7th and a closed session also held on February 7th. Approval of participation in the 2023 Urban Archery Season, the approval of the downtown calendar of events and the ordinance scheduling street closures for TGIFs and festivals and things to start. Those will begin in May. More to come about that. It's awfully nice to have that on the agenda after the last couple of years. Also setting the date for the advertisement of unpaid real estate taxes, and that will be April 6th, 2022. Get those taxes paid before then if you don't want your name in the paper. And award of contract to update the existing GIS data structure, and this is dealing with electric services. It is a contract with AECom for $40,091, and it has to do with our GIS data and electric and a mapping project. And then award a contract for upgrades at Public Safety Shooting Range, and both of these items were in the budget. And the contract is to Mid-State Contractors in the amount of $78,031.73.
Do any members wish to have any items removed from the consent agenda? Chris, are you okay with it?
I'm good.
I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Chris? Aye. Thank you. Under new business, we need to have a public hearing and consideration of an economic development agreement for local incentives for Project Highlander. The public hearing is now open for the consideration of the incentives for Project Highlander. I'll call on Alan Wood, Executive Director, BDI, to give us some information, please.
Thank you, Council. Appreciate the opportunity to be here this evening. Project Highlander is a company that has purchased building on in Morganton on 410 Hogan Street. They will be looking to create 100 new jobs. The application will be submitted in the April cycle for $200,000. The county has approved their portion of this match at their recent public hearing. There is also a One North Carolina grant that is to be considered. This will go before the governor's office. That is required to have a local match, and that would be provided by a proposed local incentive based on the new tax base. The investment is anticipated to be approximately $5.2 million. Based on that, the county's portion of the local incentive would be $54,000 roughly dollars. The cities would be roughly $44,000. That's 3 years at 50% of the new tax base created. Those numbers are estimates and they can change. They will pay above the average wage, and they will provide health insurance for their employees. This building had been on, we came really close to having this as a project a little over a year ago. We were that close. It did not come to fruition. They have closed on this structure, and we think that they will be a good addition to the community. Be happy to answer any questions.
Okay. You've heard the basic scheme of Highlander, so would anyone like to speak in favor or against Project Highlander? But it will be estimated 100 new jobs, meeting or above the county average wage.
Correct. They
Thank you,
have
Alan.
to be at or above the county average, or we will not bring them to our local officials for approval.
Thank you. Again, this is public hearing time. Anybody like to speak for or against? Public hearing is now closed. What's the wish of council?
Motion to approve a local economic development incentive jointly with Burke County for the local match to the $250,000 1NC grant, and to approve a local match of $5,000 for a building reuse grant, both for Project Highlander.
I have a motion. To have a second?
Second.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes. Next is a public hearing consideration of a local economic development incentive agreement for Project Bravo. I'll call for public hearing to be open and ask Alan to give us some information on Project Bravo.
Bravo is a project that is a local business that will be expanding. This is a building reuse grant as well as a 1NC. There are 25 jobs, I believe, attached to this. They are really good paying jobs. They average a little above $62,000. We have worked with this company for the last 4 to 5 years, trying to help them figure out. They've looked at various opportunities within their company. We think this is probably just the first of what we hope is more than one. And with the conversation we've had, we think it's very possible that there will be multiple expansions here over time. They have a new manager that has come in, and I found him, his comment was this is now his community, and that he is really interested in helping to grow this facility. So this is a building reuse grant. The county is the applicant on this. They have already approved their portion of this as far as the building reuse goes. So we would be asking the city to provide 5% match for this. In addition, there is
Half of the 5%.
half of the 5%, yeah. I'm sorry. And there is a 1NC that has been approved, and once again, we would ask to do a local incentive grant based on 50% of the new tax base for a period of 3 years, and that will cover the match for the 1NC.
Okay, anyone wish to speak for or against Project Bravo? Just one comment, and I guess I can make it right now. This would be about a $4.1 million project, is that correct? Okay. Anyone to speak? If not, public hearing is now closed. What's the wish of council?
I'll make a motion to approve a local economic development incentive jointly with Burke County for the local match to the $75,001 NC grant, and to approve a local match of $5,000 for a building reuse grant, both for Project Bravo.
I have a motion. To have a second?
Second.
Chris?
I'll second.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
Thank you so much. Next, we have a public hearing consideration for allowing Burke Economic Development to grant property in the Burke Business Park as a local incentive for project It's About Time. Call the public hearing open. Alan, would you tell us why it's about time?
This is the 5th public hearing that I have been to on this project now. So it's about time for me to be finished with public hearings on this too. This project, you should have had in your package, I think, a copy of the master site plan for the business park. This would be lots A, B, and C, roughly 23.6 acres. Early on, we had discussed them doing this in segments. They are now looking to build the entire building at one time. Their demand for their product is so great that they know that they can never meet it if they phased it in. So we're looking at a 500,000 square foot facility to be built. The 25 million is not accurate. We're looking at more between 35 and 40 million dollars by the time this is built and fully loaded out. They are continuing to move. I had conversation with the company last Thursday. They are in the process of picking a contractor. We had to go back and they had to readjust their bids based on doing this in one time as opposed to phases. So all the bids, just the last one was submitted this past Friday, and we anticipate them choosing their contractor very shortly. The company will be adding, within 5 years, up to 100 jobs. The 72 is within 3 years. The incentive that we're proposing on this is the land, which we estimated a value at $944,000. That's based on the $40,000 an acre price that we had listed on this property. What that means is as soon as the building is complete and hits our tax rolls, we do start receiving full property tax back. And that's important because first thing we would do is return the money that has been used for matches, for grants. After that is completed, the tax revenue would start to go back to the partners in this proportionally to the amount of money that they have invested. I would say that we have worked long and hard to get this to this point. A couple other items. We have received, the county actually received a $639,000 Golden Leaf grant that will drive the water that is needed for the fire suppression and other items. And we are looking at a rural infrastructure grant that would bring the sewer from its location at the back of the property up to the lot line. A couple of nice things about this is once those lines are brought forward, they do serve, in particular, Lot D, which I think is very important to us. Some things that I might have to tell you coming up very shortly will bring that into fruition. But that we think we can put roughly 200,000 square feet on that pad. So the infrastructure is, with this grant money, will be covered there. So that would leave pad E, and we'll be looking for another site. So we're very pleased with this. This has been a long road, and it's my best estimate that we'll probably be breaking ground June, July. That's sort of where we're looking right now.
Anyone wish to speak in the public hearing for or against the project? It's about time. If not, the public hearing is closed. Alan, the way I figured, that's almost $50 million you brought to us so far tonight, or to the county. Is that rough? Possible 40 million, with It's About Time, 4 million for Project Bravo and 5.2 for Project Highlander. It's
not a bad day.
Not a bad evening in Morganton, North Carolina.
That's 197 new jobs.
Yeah.
That's good stuff, too.
Okay.
Alan, I want to know how you come, do you pick the names out of a hat, or?
I did It's About Time.
Yeah, right. Well, folks, we need a motion before we really discuss. I need a motion, please.
It's about time for a motion.
I'll make a motion to endorse plans of BDI to grant and convey approximately 23 acres of property in the Burke Business Park as incentive for that industry identified as Project It's About Time.
We have a motion to have a second.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Chris?
Aye.
Thank you so much. Okay.
Thank you
Thanks,
for your
Alan.
Thank
consideration.
you, Alan.
Thanks,
Thank you
Alan.
for your work.
Next is a public hearing consideration of a rezoning request of 45.76 acres. I'm going to call on our Director of Development Design, Philip Luckadoo, to give us some information. Thank you, Philip.
Mr. Mayor and members of council, this property is zoned, or is located at 436 Lost Corner Road. It is currently zoned residential low conditional use. As you all know, that's a holdover from the previous zoning ordinance, and the previous plan for that, or the conditional use permit that was issued for that, was for, I think, 90 homes to be constructed on that property. And so for it to go forward to be developed anything differently than that, there has to be a rezoning to a current zoning designation. So there is a new property owner who wishes to construct a single-family residence on that property, and they are in turn petitioning to rezone that to low-intensity development, LID. And the Planning Commission reviewed this request on February 7 and voted 8-0 in favor of the motion, or voted in favor of a motion, rather, to recommend rezoning because it is consistent with the Mission 2030 plan, and so they are recommending approval by City Council.
Good. It is a public hearing. Would anyone like to speak for or against rezoning 45.76 acres located at 436 Lost Corner Road? Seeing no one come forward, close the public hearing. What's the wish of council?
Motion to recognize that the City of Morganton future land use map reflects that the subject parcel of this rezoning request is currently designated as residential low and thereby consistent with the Mission 2030 Land Development Plan.
We'll have a motion to have a second.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
Motion passes. I need another motion, please.
I'll make a motion to adopt an ordinance for a map amendment of 45.76 acres of property located at 436 Lost Corner Road from residential low conditional use to low intensity district.
Thank you, Butch. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
Motion passes. And yet another public hearing. Here we go. A public hearing consideration of a zoning ordinance text amendment to section 4.4 landscaping and screening standards, subsection 4.4.3.2 type 2 buffer yards to enhance the requirement of the buffer yard type by including more uses. We'll open the public hearing. Philip, help us with 4.4.3.2.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, so there are three types of buffers in this zoning ordinance, and they buffer separate, different uses to make them more compatible with each other. That's kind of the premise behind our ordinance, is that our permitted uses in each zoning district were opened up, so there are more allowed in each zoning district, but you have to buffer certain ones from the others to make them more compatible. The type 2 buffer, in administering the code as we have over the past few years, came upon type 2, which is non-residential development, as it was adjacent to residential development. What we found is that it left a gap in a buffering for other lower intensity uses, such as schools or parks or churches or anything else. And so what the proposal is to change that from non-residential development, excluding EID, adjacent to any residential development, and it should read then type 2 buffer yards, non-residential development adjacent to any type of development of lower intensity, not including development within an EID or exclusive industrial district. The Planning Commission reviewed this also at the I can't speak tonight. At the February 7 meeting, and voted 8-0 to recommend that this amendment be made by City Council. They further stated that it is in compliance with the Mission 2030 plan, and again are recommending approval.
Thank you. Would anybody wish to speak about subsection 4.4.3.2? I'm getting good at that, Wendy. If not, public hearing is now closed. What's the wish of council?
Motion to adopt an ordinance amending section 4.4.3.2 of the City of Morganton zoning ordinance as proposed by staff and recommended by the Planning and Zoning Commission to be consistent with the City of Morganton 2030 land use plan by providing buffering between non-residential development and land uses of lower intensity.
I have a motion to have a second.
Second.
Any discussion?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to compliment Scott. I had some questions about this and in discussing it with him, and then as I was thinking earlier in our advocacy, protecting our citizens' property, I certainly see the reason and will certainly support this, so thank you.
Louis?
And I might just add, this was not a hypothetical. We actually had a situation came up where we realized the neighboring property wasn't residential, but it was a place that you would have wanted buffer, and it didn't actually require it, and that's why we felt the need to change that.
Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
Motion passes. Next is consideration of approval of a memorandum of understanding with NCLM MAPS Group for Assessment Center for selection of the Director of Morganton Public Safety. Sally?
So earlier tonight, we honored Chief Loudermilk in his retirement, so that means that we have to hire a new chief. So Russ Shearer, the HR director, and I are recommending that because of the importance of the position, because of everything that you need for that, the skill set and all those, it is common practice to use an assessment center. The League of Municipalities has the MAPS Group as a entity that provides those services that they have vetted. We have, in fact, at the city used them before and would like to ask you to consider a contract with them for $12,000, expenses up to $2,200, and that we would begin that process in April of this year.
What's the wish of council?
Motion to approve an agreement with NCLM for a job-related selection process for Public Safety Director at a cost not to exceed $14,200.
I have a motion to have a second.
Second.
Just for the folks at home, NCLM is North Carolina League of Municipalities.
That is
We
correct.
use a lot of acronyms,
Acronyms.
so we want them to know that. Sally, this is in the budget. Do we have that budgeted?
Yes, we are not doing a budget amendment because we feel like we're going to be able to cover that within expenses
Okay.
that are already budgeted in our recruitment line item. And I will also state that this process is a very comprehensive process and one that is very community-oriented. It involves a lot of participation.
What's the wish of council? Do I have a motion or yeah?
We got a motion, we got a motion and a second. I guess we're voting.
Yeah, okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
Motion passes. Sorry. Got caught up
Yeah.
in thinking about chief. Next is consideration of award of contracts for audit services. Sally?
Okay, I think Jesse's going to handle this.
Call on our finance director, Jesse Parrish, to give us some insight, please.
I'll say this briefly. So in December of this past year, we were notified by our current auditors, Elliott Davis, that we've had for several years, that as a firm, they were disengaging from all governmental clients, mainly due to staffing issues, and that they have to stay competitive due to our North Carolina oversight in their audit bids, and they just weren't able to do that and then also still make their margins they wanted to. So we went out for a request for proposals in mid-January. We waited a month and gave as many opportunity as we could because there was multiple municipalities and counties looking for auditors at the same time. In mid-February, we received 3 bids back that we were very happy to have 3. They were all relatively close in their ranges of pricing, some offering extra charges for services for a single audit, which we qualify for almost on an annual basis just because of how much extra funding we receive. and especially through our CDBG and PAL bill programs. So we decided to engage with the lowest bid, but also the most qualified based on their proposals and based on multiple recommendations of current clients that we received, which is Thompson Price Scott Adams. Their main office is out of Wilmington, but they do a large percentage of audits across the state of North Carolina.
Jesse, thanks. What's the wish of council?
I make a motion to award a contract to Thompson, Price, Scott, and Adams for the fiscal year 2022 and 2023 at a cost of $39,000.
I have a motion. Have a second.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Aye.
Thank you. Next is consideration of awarding contract of underground electrical work. Sally?
Yes, in our current fiscal year budget for the electric department, we have $80,000 in for some electrical underground work, which is going to be replacing old underground services to apartment complexes and some of our older neighborhoods like that where the infrastructure there is past its useful life. Improvements that will help us in reducing power outages and to identify issues and problems that we have. Took bids and received 2 bids. Informal bids were received on March the 2nd. The lowest responsive bid came from Carl Grigg Electric and Supply out of Shelby. They have done other work for us, and so we can be a reference for them and know they do good work. Would ask that you consider awarding to them for up to $80,000. This is a unit cost because we'll work as long as we have money left and continue to complete projects.
What's the wish of council?
Motion to approve a contract with Carl Grigg Electric and Supply Incorporated of Shelby, North Carolina, at unit cost as described in the attached bid tabulation for a total amount not to exceed $80,000 for underground installation projects.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
Motion passes. And then consideration of awards for marketing at comma.
So this is a follow-up to the idea that we presented to you at the workshop last Friday. Yeah, wow, seems like a long time ago, doesn't it? So anyway, I had presented that to you and then asked that you consider awarding the contracts tonight. We have 2 things that the staff is asking for. The comma staff and working with the comma ad hoc committee are trying to update our marketing and to look for a way of reaching out to more folks in the region. I also think reaching out to folks in our community. After the last couple of years and everything, it is clear that we need to reintroduce comma to our own community so we know what we have available in our own back door. We're starting to see better attendance and folks getting excited about coming to live performances again, so that is exciting. Found a digital marketing group, and this is really a key in digital marketing, understanding how and why you buy the things you do, the things you're interested in, and then actual direct marketing back to you of comma and trying to sell you on taking advantage of what's offered there. The company that we are recommending is Custom Marketing Insights and Solutions. It's a 3-month contract beginning April, so we can market this year's coming season for that. And we're excited about that. The cost for that is $11,100. And then also a contract with Speed Pro out of Charlotte for some new branding of our building and actually letting people know what that building is and getting out the fact that we're moving from the old auditorium thought process to the Performing Arts Center process. The cost for that is $48,262.50. We had $25,000 already in the budget for signage and remarketing of that. So we'd ask for the 2 contracts, a budget amendment in the amount of $34,600, which will be general fund monies, but understanding that we were very successful in getting the shuttered venue grant of over $300,000, which has allowed us to pay other costs. So we feel very comfortable in recommending this budget amendment.
And Chad has pictures whenever you want to see, so.
Let's see pictures.
So I just wanted, first of all, for you folks to know that I listened to what you had to say Friday, and there was a comment about the front piece, trying to get Performing Arts Center a little bigger. We got it to 26 inches, which is a little over 2 feet. That's about the best we could do with the front. The side, however, you greatly expanded it. We've got comma letters at 11 feet. The faces, the tragedy and comedy, thank you, couldn't think of the opposite, thank you, Ron, will not be gold, it will be white, but these are the most recognizable images for performing arts centers, and they will turn those white. So that, we did pick up the wrong one. Well, you just saw the side, so that's how it will look when it's done, except it will say comma with the faces on the right-hand side. So, should be, I think this is gonna make a huge step moving forward with this place. No one ever knows what the building is.
It becomes a destination.
It does become a destination, yes.
What's the wish of council?
Motion to award a contract to Custom Marketing Insights and Solutions for 3 months in the amount of $11,100.
Have a motion to have a second.
Second.
Any questions? Sharon, when would they start? They will start,
As the weather turns.
as soon as the weather turns, they'll start. Any other questions? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Chris?
Start with the building, we'll
Yeah.
start the other piece in April.
Thanks, Chris. Okay, I need another motion, please.
Motion to award a
Make a
contract.
motion to award a contract
Go ahead, Chris.
Go ahead,
for
Chris.
new, to make a motion to award a contract to Speed Pro for new signage at comma in the amount of $48,500.
Have a motion to have a second.
I'll second it.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
Motion passes. I need another motion, please.
Motion to approve a budget amendment in the amount of $34,600.
Have a motion to have a second.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
Motion passes. Anything else to come before council tonight? Sally? Louis? If not, we are adjourned.
Thank you.